Cam Fam, it's Monica from My Big Camera. In this video, we will be taking you behind the scenes to show you how to pose an older baby in 3 popular sleeping newborn poses. If you don't know, the ideal window to photograph newborns is within the first 2 weeks, but what if you have a client that contacts you after that window? What if the baby is a month old or 2 months old? We will show you exactly how we pose older babies safely and comfortably, and how we transition and soothe them so that you can hopefully feel more confident going into your next newborn session with an older baby. This is actually a re-upload with fixed audio, as it's a very popular video on our channel. I've been wanting to fix the audio for a long time as it was really bugging me, so this is pretty much the same video but with much better audio. If you're new to our channel, we teach aspiring photographers how to improve their skills, specifically when it comes to newborn and portrait photography. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking that red subscribe button, and make sure to click that notification bell too, so that you get a notification every time we release a new video. Alright, so let's jump into our studio. We are using our daughter, who is 6 months old at the time of this video. So she's definitely a lot bigger, more alert, and less flexible than a typical newborn would be. But the strategies that we will be using, we use for newborn babies all the way up to 2 months old, depending on the baby. Before I even set baby down on the beanbag, I make sure everything is ready and I have baby dressed in whatever I want them in for the first pose. Make sure baby is nice and full, and then I recommend that you take baby from mom and rock them yourself, because sometimes babies can get fussy when they smell mom's milk. It can also make things a lot easier to set baby down since they're not being transferred twice. Once you have baby asleep, you can try to set them down for the first pose. We will be starting off with the tushy up pose, so I'm trying to set her down on her tummy. She fussed a little bit, but as soon as I set her down, I made sure to turn her head towards the light and tucked her hand under her face and set her face down on top of her hand. To calm her down, I'm just gently stroking between her eyes. Honestly, it's like a magic mute button. As long as baby is a little bit drowsy, it generally works like a charm. And now I'm just gently patting her back to settle her. Babies love the soothing vibration and will most likely settle. Now that I have her settled, I'm going to pose her legs. Her legs are very stiff and chunky, so they're a lot more difficult to position under her than a younger baby. But basically, I'm just folding her back foot over the one closest to the camera, and then bringing her knees forward and tucking them underneath her belly. If she stirs, then I'll just pat her on the back to settle her again. She did move her hand out of position, so I'm just patting her to settle her while keeping my right hand on her bum and legs to keep them in position. Since older babies tend to wake easier, you definitely want to keep movements very small and do lots of extra soothing to keep them asleep. Don't worry about perfecting the pose right away. You can always perfect it after you get a couple of safety shots. Now I'm going to repose her head and her hand. Basically, I'm just trying to straighten out her fingers and flatten out her hand as best as I can. Then bring it close to her face, and then while holding it in place with my thumb, I'm using my index finger to gently lift her chin. And then with my other hand, I'm using it to lift her head to bring her face forward so her cheek rests on top of her hand. You can see she woke up a little bit when I did this, so I'm just soothing her until she settles while holding her hand in place. Her legs also popped out of position. You can prevent this if you have a spotter or parent. You can always get them to put their hand on baby's bum to keep their legs in place while you pose the face and hand. I'm now adding a large posing bean underneath her head and hands to lift up her head. And a smaller bean under her legs to lift up her bum. With older babies, you should avoid lifting up their bums too much since they're not as flexible as newborns and their backs don't arch as much. I'm also turning her bum towards the camera to get her knee to touch her elbow as best as I can. She's really stiff, so she's not really letting me bend her too much, which is totally fine. I don't want her to be uncomfortable or to put any strain on her little body. But ideally, if you could get that knee up to her elbow, then that's awesome. You can see that she moved her bum and legs back into a more comfortable position, which again is totally fine for me. It will still be a beautiful photo. One thing that I wanted to mention is that when you take on an older newborn, You need to manage the client's expectations. Just remind them that the baby may not sleep the entire time or not sleep at all, and you may not be able to get any sleeping newborn type poses. But try to keep it very simple, stick to the simple newborn poses that older newborns can do, like the 3 poses I'm showing you here. Tummy poses, chin on arms, side lying, and wrapped poses all usually work really great. Back poses can work too, but unless a baby is swaddled, babies tend to have a pretty strong startle reflex and may startle awake out of the pose. If baby is awake and calm, then you can definitely do some photos of baby on its back. It's a good idea to be extra prepared with a number of extra setups that you can do with baby awake in case baby doesn't want to sleep at all. It's hard to tell from the angle of the filming camera, but she is posed completely parallel to the camera, so her face and bum are at the same focal distance and I'm shooting directly in front of her. So a full-length shot is the main shot that I want to get. I will then try to get a couple of close-ups and also some from above. Remember to always wear your camera strap when shooting from above because you never want to risk your camera falling onto a baby. So now that I have my safety shots, I'm going to try to fix her hands and face. Just like before, get those fingers flat and then gently bring her face forward and onto her hand. Then I'm going to redo the same shots as before. As you can probably tell, newborn photography requires a lot of patience and time, but just take your time and move slowly to keep baby settled. I also wanted to mention that although you can't see it, we have a white noise machine going and we keep the room quite warm, usually around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which we have found to be the perfect temperature to keep babies sleeping without overheating them. Babies love warmth and will generally sleep really well if they're nice and warm. If you're not able to heat up the whole room, you can use a small space heater, but just be careful not to have the heater going directly on the baby because you don't want them overheating. If baby starts to turn red or if the back of their neck is sweaty, then they are too warm and you need to cool them down. Always keep baby comfortable and safe. And just in case you're wondering, my daughter's cheeks are red because she's teething really badly right now, so her cheeks are always super red, but she's very comfortable without being too warm or cold. Here are the final shots. These are all taken at f2.8, ISO 100, and shutter speed 1/160th of a second. If you're interested in our lighting setup for newborns, we actually have a whole video on it, so I will link it up in the cards in case you're interested in checking it out. So next pose that we will be transitioning her into is sort of an angled tummy pose. I don't actually know what this pose is called, but it's a really easy one to do right after the tushy up pose. I'm first going to remove the posing bean underneath her legs. And then I'm going to move her bum towards the back of the backdrop so that her body is more angled towards the light. My light is positioned on the left side at a 45-degree angle towards the baby. And now I'm just adding a larger posing bean underneath her face and hands so that it's higher than the rest of her body. I'm going to try to move her face onto her hand again, and you can see that this woke her up a little bit, so I'm just trying to get her settled again and gently but firmly hold her in place. So now I'm just tucking a wrap around her body to get a bit of a different look. This is a great way to avoid taking off the diaper. With an older baby, I would suggest leaving the diaper on unless they're super sleepy, because if they poop or pee, they will probably wake up very upset and may not fall back asleep. So I usually stick to simple wraps I can swap out and a simple diaper cover. So for this pose, I'm actually shooting at a 45-degree angle, basically right beside my light. My camera is angled right at her face so I can get all of her little features and have her body blurred out in the background. I'll also do some close-up shots and a couple of shots from above. Now that I have my safe shots, I'm going to perfect the pose by lifting her face onto her hand a little bit better. When doing this pose, be mindful of their mouths being open. A lot of babies like to open their mouths when in this position, which doesn't look the greatest in the photo. So just gently close their mouth by lifting up their chin with your finger. Also be careful not to stretch out their neck too much. This can cause baby to have trouble breathing, so always be careful posing babies as they are tiny little humans that you need to be gentle with. If you notice the baby's body moving up and down too much when they breathe in and out, then you probably have their chin extended up too much and need to get them out of that position right away. Okay, so the next pose that I will be demonstrating is the side lying pose. You can either transition from the side lying to tushy up or the tummy poses to side lying. I actually normally like to do the side lying pose after a wrapped pose and then transition to tushy up. But since this is the first time I'm attempting the pose with my daughter since she was a newborn, I decided to do it last just in case she decided she was done with the session. I completely underestimated how heavy and big she was compared to a newborn and didn't do the best job turning her, so she started to fuss a little bit. With a younger baby, you shouldn't have any issues. So just try to grab their feet and bum with one hand and then the top part of their body with the other. I had to do this separately because of how long and big she was, but once I got her flipped onto her side, I just try to settle her again. While still holding her hands in place, I'm going to stack her legs on top of each other with my other hand. Then I try to stack her hands on top of each other while holding them in place so she doesn't startle herself awake. Once she's settled, I'm going to lift up her head, just like before, and lift it onto her hands while still holding her hands in place. If you hold them in position and gently rock them a bit, baby will generally settle into the position really well. I'm still working on getting those fingers straight while still gently rocking her and holding her head and hands in place. And while holding her head and hands in place, I'm going to fix her feet and move her legs. Again, if you have an assistant or parent that can hold their legs while you position their hands and face, this would be a lot easier and you can avoid them moving out of position. I'm just going to angle her face up to the light a little bit. And in order to prevent her from startling out of position, I'm actually holding her hands while I put on the headband with my other hand. It's not exactly the easiest thing to do, but it'll keep her settled. I like to use jersey tie-back headbands because they're really easy to slip on and off, and really, really soft on baby's head. I make a lot of my own tie backs, and if you're interested in learning how to make your own, I have a video tutorial on it. I'll link that up in the cards in case you're interested. I can't get her fingers completely straight, but I'm going to take my safe shots and then try again. Here I'm just stretching out the blanket. It's best to use stretchy fabrics so you can stretch them as much as possible to get rid of any wrinkles, because that'll make editing so much easier. However, if you do have a couple of wrinkles in your backdrop, our free frequency separation Photoshop action works great for removing the wrinkles in Photoshop. I'll put a link for where you can download our free Photoshop action set in the description box in case you're interested. So now that I have my safe shots, I'm adding a wrap to cover her diaper cover. And now I'm going to retake my shots. The shots I always aim to get are full body ones at a 45-degree angle, so basically right beside my light. And then some close-ups, some from above, and also one from the front directly parallel to her body. Her head and upper body are so heavy, so it makes it difficult to lift up her head enough, but I'm just adding another bean to lift it up a little bit more, and then I'm going to try to perfect the pose. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so you really don't need to do this if you don't want to, but I'm just trying to make sure that the cheek doesn't look too squished. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that when starting out especially, stick to just a couple of very basic neutral colors for your backdrop. Cream, white, gray, and a soft pink are all you really need in the beginning. Those are also the most flattering colors for baby's skin tone, and they won't cause color casts on baby's face, which can be really difficult to edit out on Photoshop. Plus, it's really easy to add pretty much any color of accessories that you would like since the backdrop is so neutral. You really don't need much when you're starting out. Even if you just start out with a cream backdrop and a cream wrap, you can easily use those for both boys and girls and create some really beautiful timeless photos that the parents will love. And if you're interested in learning how to edit baby skin in Photoshop, I'll link an editing video up in the cards in case you wanted to check it out. I'll also link our entire newborn playlist up in the cards so you can watch more videos on newborn photography. Well, that's it. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful and that you feel more confident in posing newborns and older babies. If you found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up as it really helps out our channel. We would love it if you would join our Cam Fam by subscribing and hitting that bell icon too so that you're notified the next time we release a video. We also just started a Facebook group for newborn photographers to share and inspire each other. And we would love it if you would join us down there, so I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. I'll also leave a link up in the cards to our posing playlist in case you're interested in more posing tutorials. And if you're interested in downloading our free Photoshop actions for editing newborns and portraits, I'll leave a link for that down in the description box as well. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now, and remember, keep creating.